Kia ora koutou. Welcome, everyone. It's really wonderful to see so many people here in person and online for our latest event, a Toolbox for Young Professionals. So we're really delighted to have Victoria, Mike and Priya here today as talent acquisition experts from Auckland Council. They'll be helping us build our professional toolboxes with practical advice and insights on the current job market. Well, so whether you're looking for your first role out of university, or whether you're navigating a career transition, or whether you're quite comfortable in your current position, this presentation is for you. So Victoria and Mike will be sharing valuable tips on where to look for job opportunities, how to enhance your CV, ways to use AI effectively when on the job search, and how to make the most of LinkedIn for supporting your career goals. So before I hand over to Victoria, I just want to do a quick plug for the New Zealand Coastal Society. So we have our annual conference. This is that actually. Here we are. Yeah, I have an annual conference coming up in Dunedin. It's a really great event. We have lots of networking opportunities and also obviously lots of fantastic presentations. So that's kind of promising up to be a fantastic event. And if you're not already a member for students, it's free to the New Zealand Coastal Society, and it's sort of cheaper for emerging professionals, so anyone in the first 5 years of leaving university.
Before we get started, I will just open with our opening karakia. That's something we do within our organisation just to acknowledge and really just to kind of set the scene for tonight. You're most welcome to join in if you like to. We've got the words up here, or you can just listen. Manawa mai te muri nuku, manawa mai te mori rangi, ko te mori kai o, he mori te pua, kapakura, mai te po, tomi te morie, homie hui taki, kia ora. Welcome everybody. Thank you so much for the introduction, Megan, and thank you so much for having us tonight. We're really excited to be here. Before we get started, we're just going to do a quick introduction from each of us so you can get to know us. We got to meet some of you through the mingling, which was lovely just to hear a little bit more about everybody's background and what they're doing at the moment. So that was really great. In terms of the session, we have quite a bit of content to get through tonight, so what we'll do is instead of asking questions throughout the session, we'll get to the end of the presentation and then we'll allow plenty of time for some questions. So we'll have some questions from those that are in person and also those that are online. So if you can just try and remember your questions and then save them for the end, that would be great. Excellent. So I am Victoria Swan, and most people just call me Vic. I work at Auckland Council within our talent acquisition team. My job is to provide career support across the organisation. So I support employees in the organisation that might be at risk of redundancy, or it might just be those that are looking for new opportunities across the organisation. I've been with Council now for, I can't remember, I think it's 8 years, coming up to 8 years. But before that, I worked in recruitment in New Zealand. I worked in agency recruitment. I worked in internal recruitment in New Zealand. I worked in Australia and Scotland a while ago, so nearly 20 years in kind of recruitment. And then I moved into career support and qualified to be a career coach. So I'm also a career coach as well. That's a little bit about me. Did you want to introduce yourself, Mike?
Kia ora team, I'm Mike Sipo. I'm a talent acquisition consultant at Auckland Council. So I primarily support Tataki Auckland Unlimited, and I also recruit for our governance and engagement space. So I get to bring in all of the wonderful people and kaimahi that support our city's vibrancy, as well as high profile events, and all the people that also care about our people too. I've been with Council for about 4 years now, so almost just as long as Vic. I have worked in the HR arena for a little while now. So I came from an L&D space and then found myself in talent acquisition. I was able to upskill during all of the wonderful opportunities that the COVID lockdown gave us. But yeah, it was a good opportunity for me, and hopefully we can sort of find and work on finding opportunities for you too. I'll hand it over to Priya.
This might be a little bit high for me.
It's all right. Yeah. Kia ora, everyone. My name's Priya. I also work at Auckland Council along these two lovely folk. Kind of in a sideways role, also within the talent acquisition space. But I'm a careers advice coordinator for graduates and interns at Council. So my primary responsibilities is kind of overseeing the graduates and interns that we take on board our programs from their very start to when they finish off and roll up into roles or other opportunities in Auckland Council. So I've been in this role for about a year and a half now. It's been really rewarding. I'm coming almost full circle of seeing graduates from start to finish. So it's been great to see them kind of come in, also students kind of like yourselves or some of yourselves, really see them kind of like develop and grow within their spaces and move on to bigger and better kind of opportunities, you know, in different departments in that. And just my experience broader, I've worked in the people operations and HR space across payroll, systems, data. And a few years ago, I found myself moving into talent acquisition, probably because it gelled a little bit more with my personality and it was a bit more fun. And yeah, that's me. So I hope you guys get something good out of today's workshop session.
Thank you, Priya. I'll put the mic back up now for me and Mike. So with this session tonight, we were going to have a break, but I think we might be a little bit short for time. So look, just feel free if you want to stand up throughout the session and go and grab a drink or more pizza, or if you need to go to the bathroom, don't worry about that. Just get up when you need to. We'll start off to go over a little bit around about job search, CV and cover letter, which Mike will talk you through. And then I'll present some information around about interview skills, LinkedIn, and touch on AI. And then we'll hand over to Priya at the end to talk a little bit more about internships. So I'll hand over to Mike.
Awesome. So no matter where you are at in your job search opportunity or where you are in your career, the next few slides will sort of relate to what you can do to proactively engage with the market and sell yourself and work on your personal branding. So one of the biggest misconceptions about job hunting is that you just apply for a role online, you go and seek, you apply for a job, you see something that you like. And the truth is that up to 70% of roles aren't actually advertised or available to people because of it not being listed or relying on a lot of you and your networks to find these opportunities. So basically, the more proactive you are in your job search and finding opportunities, the more successful you'll be. These are some of the opportunities and where places you can find jobs. So thinking of job boards, on company career sites, think of companies that you also want to work towards, or companies that you like or that align with your own values and goals. They might have something that sort of isn't listed on public job boards, sort of like Seek. And we all know that networking is a really key opportunity in finding roles. So congrats on being here. Amongst some talent acquisition professionals, you're setting yourself apart from other people in the market too. And we know that word of mouth is a lot stronger in a market like New Zealand, where we sort of rely on feedback and opportunities through word of mouth that are always stronger. They're actually up to 10 times stronger than finding a role through job boards like Seek. Not that they are terrible, but they're very there are other ways to find jobs. And there's also other opportunities you can do yourself, like volunteering, internships, temporary work, and even reaching out directly to recruiters or recruitment agencies like Tonkin and Taylor, where they can sort of give you insights to what the job market is doing in your particular industry. So where and how to find work? Many industries have their own specialist job boards, newsletters, and professional organizations. So for coastal environmental and scientific careers, this could include councils, consultancies, universities, Crown Research Institutes, and other specialist industry newsletters. Professional associations are also worth joining as they often provide networking opportunities. You're here today because of that. Mentoring, reaching out to your university professors and tutors if there's any opportunities available there for you to shadow, and to get industry insights from them. Basically, the more connected you are with your industry, the more informed you'll be about these opportunities that are out there that we don't know exist. So this is what the typical recruitment process would look like for any organization. We sort of apply for a role, you see something that you like, you go through a phone or video screening. So as a recruiter, always be prepared to talk about yourself. Start thinking about your elevator pitches, things you would do to sell yourself in front of a general manager for a company, or even other ELT that maybe work that you'd get stuck in a lift with. And always have your phone ready to answer when we're trying to get a hold of you to call. So yeah, after the screening stage, there's always the interviews. That's when you'd meet with the hiring team and panel and other senior stakeholders for the role, depending on the role. And then we'd walk through any assessments. So thinking about presentations or any sort of tasks that would be required for the role, just to test how you think. And that's when we'd move into the pre-employment check stage. For any role, most organizations require Ministry of Justice check or pre-employment drug testing and alcohol testing. And that's when you'd land the job offer. There's always a bit of confusion at that job offer stage, if that's sort of a lot of people are really uncertain about leaving maybe their current employer. But if you do get a verbal offer from any company, remember it is legally binding. So they have to hold themselves accountable to that. Oh, and then we'll move over into the CV and cover letter stage. So think of this next few slides as your CV and cover letter checklist. Your CV is your first impression of yourself outside of networking. So it gives you a really good chance to highlight your skills and your attributes and what aligns you to the role. You're basically telling me why I should bring you in for an interview. So what's the purpose of the CV? It represents you and your absence, aims to get you through the next stage of the recruitment process, like I said, and it provides you an opportunity to showcase your skills, education, experience, and motivation. It highlights all your unique value and suitability for the role, demonstrating your professional and personal growth over time. It acts as a marketing tool, essentially, to promote your potential. It creates a strong first impression for employers, for recruiters, and hiring managers. But also it reflects your ability to meet the needs of the organization itself. Awesome. So on this next slide, we have a really good understanding of things to include on your CV. If you want to take a photo, I know that we are sending these slides out too, so don't feel pressured. So these are some of this is a really clear and organized CV that would sort of tell me what this person wants in a role, a summary about them, their key skills that are also transferable. I would list skills that are relevant to the role first, and then slowly transition into those more transferable skills. Your education, some of you might not have had jobs or have jobs at the moment. Highlight your education, any sort of key accolades, any key achievements within your degree. Those are really important to highlight. And then we'll move over into licenses and certifications. If it is relevant for the role, always tailor your CV for the role. For example, if I'm hiring a cafe assistant, I don't know if I want to see your payroll certification, you know? Awesome. All good things to have, but just make sure you're applying tailoring your CV for the right role. Awesome. And then working into your work experience, making sure that is in order from most recent employer to last. I don't think anyone here has been employed for more than 10, 15 years. So I probably wouldn't include any jobs over 10 years just for my own CV. Awesome. And then put a bit about your extracurricular activities and your volunteering. Tell us a bit about yourself, any professional things that you sort of do, any extra recreational activities, hobbies, awards, and maybe there's some skills that you've developed through that. But if there's any key takeaway from your CV, it's just to make sure that it's tailored to the role, impactful, and shows your motivation and alignment. Awesome. And here's a really good example of a CV that would be really effective within the market. This sort of tells me what they're wanting, skills that they have, their education, and their professional experience, volunteer experience, and achievements. Awesome. Now, writing a cover letter. So first and foremost, whenever you're writing a cover letter, research the organization, research its values, and explain how you can align to them. You might not have the experience now, but you might have values or intrinsic motivations in your own self that would align with the organization. Know the organization's goals. Familiarize yourself with the organization's goals and plans and targets, maybe the next 5, 10 years, and explain how you can support them. Read the job advert and the position description. Highlight your relevant experience in relation to the job and advert. I know that when it comes to cover letters, we would really love to plug it in AI, ChatGPT, give it some good prompts to write an amazing cover letter. But do showcase your communication style whenever you're writing it. I can't say the word succinctly properly, so I would never use that in a cover letter, for example. So use language that you know. And keep it to one page. It's nice, tidy. As a recruiter, I have about 6 seconds of your cover letter before I'm going to shift on to the next one. So I really want to look for some solid key points and bullet points, as well as some really strong paragraphs on why I should keep my attention on the page. And also make sure when you're applying for the role that it is relevant. So again, if you're applying for that cafe assistant role, I wouldn't talk too much about like your science or university papers too much, or any of those sort of intrinsic values that separate you from everyone else. I would sort of keep it nice and clear that you're just have a really good attitude for customer service, for example. And also use your cover letter at this time to answer unasked questions. For example, if I see that you're currently living in Auckland and you're applying for a job in Wellington, put that in your first few paragraphs explaining what your motivations are, if you're planning on relocating, or anything that would separate you from someone else. This is a really solid cover letter structure. First of all, tell me why you're applying. Express your interest in the role. Mention how you found the opportunity. So seek on the careers page or even through a referral. And then move into your experience and suitability. Highlight your relevant skills and experience, any key achievements that are related to the role, or any transferable skills, provide specific examples and evidence. So use quantifying facts and data. I worked at a cafe and I was able to push out 20 coffees in 30 minutes, for example. And then finally, link how you can contribute to the organization's goals or even future plans. And then tell me a bit about your interest in the role and organization. So your motivations, why do you want to work for our organization? Is there anything within our values that aligns to you? Is there sort of anything you've seen in the media that you'd like to change? And then close it. Thank the reader for their time and consideration, reiterate your excitement about the opportunity, and summarize the value you'd bring to the role. So highlight your key points one last time, can really make a difference. Awesome. Might be a bit blurry for people in the back, but this is a solid cover letter. Explains their interest, their motivations, things they're looking for. I don't see any of those AI words like high impact that are really great. So but we'll send this out. Awesome. And I know that when we're applying for jobs, it's really easy to just serial apply, just keeping use of the same CV that we're sort of using. So if I was to move into a different industry, I would really have to rescope my CV, for example, into maybe a more generalist role and highlight all of my transferable skills and maybe understanding of New Zealand legislation. Use some clean and concise formatting. Goes without saying. Make sure all the fonts are the same. You start with use New Zealand English. Make sure there is United Kingdom English throughout your Word document. You don't start using American English halfway through. And highlight your achievements, not just responsibilities in the role. It's always fun, and using those metrics and quantifiable facts. And use any keywords from the job advertisement that you've seen that you would use in your day-to-day. So a strong CV tells employers what you can do, but a strong cover letter explains why you're the right person for the role. So we want to understand your intrinsic motivations and what you're wanting to maybe contribute or what you can even bring to the organization. Awesome. Hand it over to Vic.
Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you. That was a really good session, which leads nicely into interview skills, which I'm going to be talking about. But first of all, can everyone hear me okay on here? First of all, I would just like to hear from you. If you enjoy going for job interviews, if you just give a thumbs up, and those online can do it as well. And if you don't enjoy going for jobs interviews, a thumbs down. Okay, I can actually quite a few thumbs up. Okay, interesting. Some thumbs up online. Interesting. So people do enjoy going for job interviews. I am definitely not one of them. I really don't enjoy going for job interviews. I mean, I've been in the same job for 8 years, and definitely I train people every day on how to interview, but I hate going for job interviews when it's myself. But it's such a good opportunity. You don't often get a chance to actually just talk for maybe 45 minutes, an hour about yourself, your interests, talk about your achievements, your education, your work experience. So it's kind of a nice opportunity to talk about yourself. So it is a good opportunity. As Mike was saying, it is really difficult in the current job market to get through to a job interview right now. When we're looking at the CVs that are coming through for our jobs, I think was it 400 per around 400 job applications we have per each job advert that we're advertising. So it just kind of shows you the volume that's out there in the market just now. there's so many candidates in the job market that are looking for jobs right now. So if you do get through to a job interview stage, like that is an amazing achievement. When you think about all those other applicants you're up against, you have done so well getting through to that interview stage. And it is really important that you do spend some time preparing for that job interview. You've done so well if you go by Mike's advice with your CV, your cover letter, you've tailored it, you've wrote that really strong cover letter, you've got through to the interview stage. So now is your opportunity to really do the best you possibly can. So before you go into the interview, making sure you know the role. It might be that you're applying for multiple jobs out in the job market, and that's fine as long as you're tailoring each application. But make sure when you go into that specific interview that you really know what job it is you're going for. So looking through things like when you've seen the job advert and you applied for the job, I always suggest that you just take a screenshot of the job advert, because often if you get through to interview stage, the time that you get through to interview stage, the job advert's no longer on the job platform, so you can't see the job advert. So just take a snip of it when you do apply, and make sure you take a note of all the jobs you're applying for as well to keep yourself on track. And then usually the interviewer or the talent acquisition consultant or recruiter will send you an email with the details for your interview. And often what they'll do is they'll include like a position description if there is one for that job. They'll include information around about who's actually on the interview panel, if it is an interview panel. They'll usually tell you how they're going to conduct that interview. So they might say, for example, it is a 45-minute interview. We're going to ask you questions about your motivation for the role, your technical skills, some behavioural-based questions. So they're giving you as much information as they can. Now, it's going to always look different depending on where you're interviewing. So if you're interviewing like a large organisation like we work at Auckland Council, it is quite a structured process where we have interview panels. There's lots of paperwork the interviewers need to fill out, which is quite different if you were maybe applying for like a job in the summer holidays at a local cafe. Maybe you're just having a one-to-one conversation with the owner or the manager there, getting to know each other, your availability, your background. So each interview can look quite different. Before you go into the interview, make sure you've identified the skills and experience that the role requires. So really go through if there is a position description or a job advert, go through again, just highlight, okay, they're looking for these skills, they're looking for this experience, and make sure when you go into the interview, you use an opportunity to demonstrate you do have those skills and experience, and thinking about really specific examples that you have from your experience that you can talk to within the interview. And then thinking about questions you want to ask the interview panel. So usually at the end of an interview, the interviewer, the hiring panel will say to you, have you got any questions for the interview panel? And I would say probably like 9 out of 10 times when I've interviewed candidates, they've said no, or they've just said, oh, when will I hear back? And that's been it. But this is your opportunity to really demonstrate that you are motivated for the job. You can demonstrate that you have done some research, and asking some really thoughtful questions really shows that you are committed to this job. And I always recommend if you're going for an interview, you actually just write those questions down before you go into the interview and take them in as notes. I know when I had my interview for my current job, I got to the end of the interview and they said to me, have you got any questions for the interview panel? And to be honest, I just wanted to say no. I was like, I've just been interviewed for an hour. I've been asked all these questions. It was now 5 o'clock on a Friday. I wanted to get out of the door, but I wrote down my questions I wanted to ask. I felt quite committed to asking them, so I did ask the questions. I think 1 or 2 of them they'd actually already covered off at the beginning of the interview, but I still had another 2 questions that I could ask them. As I mentioned, interviews might look different depending on the role in the organisation you're interviewing for. But I've just given you a bit of an example of what some interviews might look like. So if it was like a panel interview where you've maybe got 2 or 3 interviewers on the interview panel, usually they'll introduce themselves, talk a little bit around about their background, their job within the organisation. And then they'll ask you some questions maybe about yourself as well. So things about, tell me a little bit more about your work experience or your education. They might ask some technical based questions. they might go on to what we call those behavioural-based questions. So the ones that start with things like, tell me about a time when, describe a situation when, and then some closing questions and a wrap up. So usually they'll say to you, what are the next steps in the process, when you're likely to hear back. You can ask them some questions. They might say as well, is there anything further you would like to add? And often candidates don't use this opportunity again, like when they're asked if they've got questions, they say no, and they just want to get out of the room. But it's a good opportunity for you just to really reiterate to the interview panel that, yeah, you've had the interview now, you believe you've got the skills and experience to do that job, and you are really interested. So just emphasizing at the end, yeah, you've got the skills and experience to do the job, and you're motivated to do that job as well. After the interview, you are still interested. And moving on to some general interview questions. So again, depends on the job you're applying for, but they might ask questions like, what attracted you to apply for this position? So what they're doing is they're really assessing your motivation. What appeals to you about working for the organisation? Again, assessing your motivation for that particular organisation. Hiring managers or recruiters want you to work for the organisation. When I'm recruiting for Auckland Council, I want to know that they want to work with Auckland Council. I don't want to be thinking they're just applying for every organisation out there in Auckland. They might be, but I want them to really demonstrate, what is it about Auckland Council that attracts them to work for us? What is it about that organisation? What are you doing to keep up to date with changes and developments in your industry? So really demonstrating within your specialised areas that you're keeping up to date with things. So like signing up for the newsletters, like coming to networking events, all your professional development that you're doing, making sure that you can talk to that within the interview, because they will likely ask you questions around that. Often they'll ask you about achievement. So can you describe an achievement you're particularly proud of? And it might be that you're working just now or you have previous work experience, so you can talk about a work-related achievement. Or it might be that you don't have any work experience or you've been studying, so maybe you can talk about an achievement from your studies, any kind of extracurricular activities that you've been doing throughout your studies that you can bring up an achievement from. And then often they ask you questions about your strengths. So thinking about, what are your strengths? What are you good at? And when they ask you that question, try and think about strengths that really relate to the job that you're actually interviewing for as well. I do have example questions here. These are just example behavioural-based questions. So yeah, for those that have been to interviews in the past, often they ask questions that start with, tell me about a time when, describe a situation when. That's when you should be thinking of the STAR technique. So talking through the situation, the task, the actions you personally took, and then the end result from those actions. So these are just some example ones. If you have a good look through the position description and job advert, you should be able to gauge what kind of questions they might ask you. So if you were going for a role that was very customer service focused, they're likely going to ask you something about customers. So it might be, tell me about a time when you went above and beyond to assist a customer. It might be, tell me about a time when you dealt with a difficult customer. It might be, tell me about a time when a customer came to you with a difficult request. How did you handle it? So reading through the information about the job you're interviewing for and then trying to preempt what kind of questions might they actually ask you, and thinking of really specific examples that you have that you can talk them through. Other ones often that come up about worked as a team to achieve a common goal. Tell me about a time you improved a process or procedure. One that they love to ask within our team is, tell me about a time when you made a mistake at work. What was the mistake and what did you learn from this? Tell me about a time when you used your problem solving skills to solve a complex problem. They're just some examples, but as I mentioned, really looking through the job advert, position description, and then thinking, what are they going to ask me? And you can put those information into like an AI tool as well. You can say to the AI tool, I'm applying for a job at this organisation. This is a position description. This is a job advert. What kind of interview questions do you think they might ask me? They might be completely different, but you never know. It's good just to do that, to try and think about it before you go in. I've got some questions here that you can ask the interview panel. So again, just trying to stay away from those ones that are like, tell me when I'm going to hear back, or questions when you're asking about benefits. So instead of saying to them, oh, tell me what salary is this job paying, how many holidays do I get? Not asking those types of questions, really asking well thought out questions that show that you've done some research and again, show your commitment. Again, this depends on the role, but questions like what do you see as the biggest challenges and priorities for this role over the next 12 months? I noticed the organisation's project is a key focus for the organisation. How does this team contribute to achieving that objective? I recently read about XYZ project on your website. What impact has the work had so far and what are the next steps? So you don't need to ask those questions, but really thinking about showing if you can ask a question that demonstrates you've done some research. So go onto the company's website, have a look at what they've been doing, have a look at some news articles. If you know people that work within that organisation, have a chat with them to find out what's going on, what's the organisation's priorities, how would the role that you're going into align with the priorities. STAR technique. Does everybody know the STAR technique, or is this new for some people? Some people? Okay, I'll talk it through. So within council, we love to ask behavioural-based questions. So those are the ones that are tell me about a time when, describe a situation when, and essentially we're looking to see what your past behaviours are, because it often reflects what your future behaviours would be. Other organisations use more kind of competency-based questions. We use a bit of a mix of behaviour and competency. Behaviour are the ones, tell me about a time when, describe a situation when, and we're looking for you to talk about a specific example. Some of the competency-based questions might be things like, tell me what would you do in this situation? But if you have specific examples you can talk to, I always recommend using those examples. So if I'm saying to you, tell me about a time when you dealt with a difficult customer, I want you to say, okay, in my previous role at whatever organisation it was, last month I had this situation, and then talking through the actions you took and the end result. Often with the STAR technique, in Australia they say CAR, so it's just context, action and result. In New Zealand, usually it's STAR, situation, task, action, result. So you can use whatever you feel most comfortable with. But it does just help you stay on track. When you're interviewing as well, try to avoid things like acronyms or different jargon that the interview panel might not know. Try to focus on what you actually did, so not the whole team. So maybe at university you were working as part of a team and a committee or something to achieve something, and that's great. But when you're talking about the actions within that STAR technique, try and focus on what your contribution actually was. So what did you contribute towards? And try and think of recent examples. Often when I'm coaching candidates, so give an example and it's great, but it was something from 15 or 20 years ago and it's less relevant now. Or they'll start to go into their example and then they'll forget what exactly happened, and that's because it happened 10 years ago, so their memory's not as great. So try and use something that's recent and relevant to the job that you're interviewing for, and practicing out loud if you can as well. So the more comfortable you are saying these answers out loud, the more confident you will be in your interview. If you've got a friend, if you've got someone at home that you can actually just say, can you ask me these questions? Go into AI, say, create these questions for the interview and get them to ask you the questions. And you can give your examples. Or you can go onto Google Warmup, which is like an online AI tool as well that you can use to practice as well. It doesn't understand my accent, my Scottish accent, but I can type in my answers. You can use AI as well to help you with your answers. But I'm saying that help because AI doesn't know what you did within your roles. AI does not have your examples, but you could even type up your example that you've got and then say to AI, can you put this into the STAR technique? Or can you make this relevant for this type of question? So you can use it to help and guide you, but it can't give you the answers. And if you get it to make up those answers, when you go in for an interview, the interview panel are going to prompt and they're going to probe. They're going to try and get more information out of you. And if you've not got all the information, it's going to be a little bit awkward in the interview. And that goes with the CV and cover letter as well, what Mike was talking about with using AI. That's great, definitely. But what I've noticed in the past is I've had a candidate wrote this really kind of well-written cover letter, and then they've come into the interview. I'm like, did they write that cover letter? It sounds nothing like them. They're using a completely different communication style. They're using words that they are not typically using within the interview as well. So do, try to be yourself as well when you're writing CVs and cover letters and when you are going into interviews. So on the day, really important. I mean, these are things that often you might just take for granted, but you've got to get the basics right. So know who you're meeting, making sure that you know their names or roles. Do a little bit of research about them if you can. So do things like going on their LinkedIn profile or doing a quick Google search of the people that are on the interview panel. Arrive 5 to 10 minutes early for the interview. So making sure you get there nice and early. I would recommend, even if it is in a different location you've never been to before, maybe get there even earlier, but just go and sit in a cafe or something, review some of your notes, and then go and sign in reception, 10 minutes early. Priya and I were doing those mock interviews last year with university students, and I think was it like maybe 8 out of 10 or something arrived late. So it was a little bit awkward. We were doing mock interviews with them, and they kept on arriving late. And it's becoming difficult because we had to cut their time down a little bit shorter to let the next one in. So do just arrive on time. If something happens, call ahead and let them know, but do your best to get on time. Bring in some notes with you if you want to. Some people love notes, others don't like bringing notes. Completely up to you. I usually bring in notes if I'm going for a job interview. And it just means if I get a little bit nervous, I can look down at my notes and that will help me stay on track. Within my notes, I wouldn't have loads and loads of detail and pages of information. I would literally just have some keywords of examples that I can glance down at and use that as an interview example, and then have my questions that I want to ask the interview panel at the end. So I can just glance down and have a look at them. Making sure the basics, switch your phone off or make sure it's on silent. If you've got a smart watch as well, switch that off as well so it's not distracting you in the interview. It can be really nerve-wracking going in for a job interview, and the interview panel often know that as well. It is normal to be a little bit nervous when you're going in for a job interview. And as well, most organisations now allow you to ask for what we call as like accommodations or adjustments. So most organisations will welcome you to ask them. So things, for example, could be, we've had candidates before that want to bring something in just to kind of fidget with, to keep themselves focused during the interview. It might be that they know they take a little bit longer to respond to a question. So they might give us a heads up in recruitment that they do take a little bit longer to respond, and could they have a minute before they have to respond to the question, or they might want some extra time. So if you do want to ask for adjustments or accommodations, just make sure that you ask for them before the interview. So if you've got the recruiter or the hiring manager's contact details or whoever's booking the interview with you, you can have a chat with them as well if you need any accommodations or adjustments. Cool, so a little bit more about the STAR technique. This is just to give you a little bit of a guide. So when you're talking about the situation, roughly around about 20% or 10 to 20% around the situation. So saying, in my current role, whatever organisation, giving a little bit of context, talking about the task, so what tasks were you given or what did you have to work on? And then spending the bulk of the answer talking through the action. So around 60% describing the action you took. So remember to focus on your contribution was. So what did I actually do? And then talking about the end result or the outcome. So just a nice summary at the end to talk about what that result or outcome was. And it might be you want to share a learning from it as well. So it might have been that things didn't go too well with that example, but this is what I learned from it, and this is what I would do differently next time. So really going that step further and showing it in reflections that you might have. And you don't need to give too much detail. It depends what job you're going for, what level it's at, but just a couple of minutes is long enough. If the interview panel want to find out more, they'll ask you a little bit more. So they might say to you, oh, well, what actions did you take? Or what was the end result of that? So just be prepared for those types of questions as well. And it might turn a little bit more conversational throughout the interview as well when you're talking about those examples. I do have an example here. I don't know if you can read that. Those are in the room, or it's a little bit small. Okay. I'll send this out. So the question is, tell me about a time when you had to explain a complex coastal engineering issue to a non-technical audience. How did you approach it and what was the result? So essentially, within that question, they're trying to assess different competencies. So one competency would be their communication style. Another one might be looking at their stakeholder management, and it might be their technical skills as well. So talking about the situation in my current role as a coastal engineer, I was involved in a coastal erosion project where modelling showed that a section of coastline could retreat significantly over the next 20 years, potentially affecting nearby properties. We needed to present the findings to local residents and elected members who had limited technical knowledge of coastal processes and engineering assessments. So really all about that, giving the information to an audience that's not technical. Now, I'm not technical, so if you're looking at this and you're thinking the technical side doesn't make sense, apologies. The task was, so what did I need to do? 10%. I needed to clearly explain the technical finding, help stakeholders understand their risk and available management options, and build confidence in their recommended approach. The action, so that's 60%, so this is the bulk of the answer. So talking about what you personally did, I translated the engineering data into plain language and avoided technical jargon where possible. I used maps, photos, and visual graphics to show how the coastline could change over time and what that could mean for affected areas. During community meetings, I encouraged questions and gave stakeholders time to raise concerns. I actively listened to feedback about property impacts, costs, and environmental effects, then tailored my responses to address those concerns directly. I also explained the assumptions behind the modelling and outlined advantages and disadvantages of each management option so stakeholders could make informed decisions. Following the meeting, I provided easy to understand summary material and remained available to answer follow-up questions. What was the end result? So just that 10% at the end, stakeholders reported a much better understanding of the coastal risks and management options. The engagement process helped build trust with the community, resulting in strong support for their preferred option and allowing the project to progress with minimal opposition. So that's just an example, not going to be relevant for everybody, but just to give you a little bit of an idea and how you could structure that STAR technique to talk through the situation, task, action, and results. Cool. So what you can do to overcome interview nerves. Does anybody get nervous before an interview? Some people? Some, yeah? Okay. But just thinking about when you're going in for that interview, it is normal to be nervous. You know, if you want that job or if you're in a situation where you really need a job, you're probably going to be a little bit nervous about the job interview, and that's okay. Some nerves are completely fine. The interview panel know that. They've been for job interviews before. Sometimes the interview panel are quite nervous as well. Like they might have lots of paperwork they need to do. They've got a big decision to make as well. They've shortlisted you for interview, so they want you to do really well in the interview. They're not setting you up to fail. They're not trying to trick you. They want you to do well in the interview, and they want you to come out of the interview and actually want the job. They want to be able to pick, if they're interviewing 5 candidates, they want to have those 5 candidates still interested at the end of the interview process so they can make the final decision. So it's completely normal to be nervous for interviews, really just thinking about what works for you personally. You know, what do you do in other situations when you are nervous, and do what works for you at the end of the day. And just doing as much preparation as you can. So if you do that preparation, at least when you go into the interview, you know you've given it your best, you've done as much preparation as you can, you feel nice and prepared, you've done your research, you're giving it your best, that's all you can do. Excellent. I'm just checking how we are doing for time for LinkedIn. Cool, we're on track. Excellent. Cool. The next part we're going to do is looking at LinkedIn. We will still have those time for questions at the end. So if you've got questions about interviews, try and remember them for when we get to the end of the session. LinkedIn, does anybody have a LinkedIn profile? Oh, great. Okay, perfect. So most people in the room have a LinkedIn profile, which is great. So what I'll do is I'm not going to talk you through all the basics of LinkedIn, because if you've got a profile, you probably already know all of that. So I'll just go through some kind of LinkedIn profile tips, a little bit more about how you can engage and network on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn profile tips. So when you go into your own LinkedIn profile, you'll see there is what we call as a cover image. So that is set to the standard LinkedIn grey background if you haven't updated it. So making sure that you use that pencil icon to go in and update it. So with the cover image, trying to think about an image that really represents you, your industry, or your personal brand. So for mine, I just have the skyline of Auckland because I work for Auckland Council and recruit for Auckland. But everyone's is going to be a little bit different. I'm having a profile picture, so just having a picture of yourself in there. You don't need to go and get a professional picture done or anything like that. You can just have a nice clear headshot. You can just wear something that you might usually wear to work. You don't need to wear a suit or shirt and tie or anything like that. Just something that can be recognizable for others. You've got the option to add in the pronouns as well, so that's quite nice as well to add in those pronouns into your profile. So if recruiters or managers or anybody's messaging you on LinkedIn, that they know what pronouns to use. And then you've got the headline part on here. So you can see just underneath my name on there, I've got career coach, career transition support, recruitment and HR, and CDAN's professional member. So within that headline, so it's more than just your job title. So if you haven't updated your headline, it will just automatically pull your job title from your profile, which is okay, but I would always recommend going that step further. So my job title is redeployment consultant. I think I'm the only redeployment consultant in New Zealand. Nobody has a clue what that job title means. So what I've done is I've just changed mine to what are kind of words that would describe what I actually do. So career coach, career transition support. I've got a recruitment HR background, and to be a career coach in New Zealand, you have to be a CDAN's professional member. So if a recruiter or a hiring manager was looking for someone with my background, they are typically the kind of keywords that they might be searching for. So if you haven't got a headline, if it's just automatically populated to your current job title, I would spend a little bit of time thinking about creating that headline. So I've just created a generic one on there. So I've got aspiring coastal scientist, environmental science professional, coastal management, marine ecosystems and climate change adaptation. You can add things in there as well, like, are you emerging? Are you looking for a career in a certain industry? But really trying to think about those keywords that others might be searching for if they're looking for somebody with your background. And you've got the option as well to add links to portfolios, published work, etc. on LinkedIn. So if you're finding your CV, you've just got too much information on there and you don't want to have pages and pages of information, you can use your LinkedIn profile to add in a little bit more. We've got here the profile URL. So going on from what Mike was talking about CVs, when you've got your contact details within your CV, I do recommend that you copy what is your LinkedIn URL across to your CV. And that just means recruiters that are reviewing your CV can click on that and get straight onto your LinkedIn profile. Because if not, what we'll usually do is we'll see your name, we'll go on LinkedIn and then we'll search, but there might be 20 others with the same name as you. So this makes our jobs a little bit easier. We might find the wrong person. So yeah, just putting that LinkedIn URL. You've got the option on LinkedIn to edit it, to custom it. So if you haven't edited your LinkedIn URL, you'll see when you copy it, you've got all these different letters and numbers after your name, which just looks a little bit messy. So you can go in and edit it and just change it to your name. And then that's the one that you can share with others. Recommendations. So LinkedIn, you've got the option to have recommendations on your profile. So you can ask others to write your recommendation. So I really do recommend that you do that. So things like if you're doing an internship or you're doing a summer job, that you ask the person you're reporting into to go onto your LinkedIn profile and write your recommendation, because that really helps when recruiters are looking at your LinkedIn profile. We can say, okay, you've been recommended by one of their previous managers, must mean they did a really great job. And it'll tell us that, okay, well, if we get to that reference check stage, that reference is going to be positive as well. So do take some time to ask for recommendations. Don't just ask anybody though. Try and think about people that would add value. So those people maybe that you've reported into that have led you in some capacity. And then you can give recommendations as well. So if you've had others that reporting into you, working for you, if you've been like the project lead, you can go in and write them some recommendations on LinkedIn. And then you've got the option, mine doesn't show on there, but you've got the option, I think most of you have probably seen it, you can see on LinkedIn you're open to work. And it'll have that hashtag green banner that says open to work. Has everyone seen that? So you've got the option to do that if you're looking for work. You've got the option to show everybody you're open to work, or you can set it to recruiters only. So if you set it to recruiters only, that will just show those that have a recruiter LinkedIn account that you're open to work. So in my situation, my manager would probably get a little bit of a fright if she went onto LinkedIn tomorrow and seen that I said I was open to work and be like, you didn't tell me you were looking for another job. Be a bit of an awkward conversation. So if I was open to work, I would probably select the recruiters only. Well, not in my situation. I think our manager has a recruiter account, so she might find me. But for most people, you could do that and just show recruiters that you're open to work, and it wouldn't show your colleagues or your manager or anything on LinkedIn that you're open to work. The next bit is the About section. So underneath that profile picture, etc., you've got the option to add an About section. So if you want to add anything to LinkedIn, you just go to Add Profile section, and then you can add different sections. So thinking about what is most relevant for you. All the options are not going to be relevant for everybody, but one that often I see as a missed opportunity is the About section. So if you've not got one, I do suggest that you go in and add that profile section. And when you're writing your About section, what you can do is you can start with your CV. So when you've got that opening within your CV that's got the little blurb around about you and your overall experience, etc., you can use that as a starting point. But I would go a little bit further with LinkedIn because you've got more space on LinkedIn as well. So talking about like, who are you? Thinking about what are you good at? What do you care about? What's your motivation? What's your approach? And then having what we call as a call to action. So what do you want people to do when they land on your LinkedIn profile? Do you want them to connect with you? Do you want them to send you a message on LinkedIn? Are you open to networking with others that work in your industry? Really thinking back to the purpose, why are you actually on LinkedIn? Why are you investing on LinkedIn and having that time spent on LinkedIn? What are you using it for? It might be somebody has their own business. That might be more around promoting their business. That might just be for networking purposes. It might be because they're potentially looking for a new job. So adding in that information, what do you want to do when they come to your page? So I think mine's got something like interested to connect with others that work within the careers industry, something like that. Different for each person, but making sure you include that so they know what to do. Remembering the LinkedIn profile, it's out there for everybody to see, and that can be quite challenging when you're applying for different jobs, because for each job you're applying for, you will be tailoring your application. So for each job, you're tailoring about your experience and your background, etc., based on the job you're applying for. So it can be a little bit different on LinkedIn because it's just open and you don't know when people are going to be looking on your profile. So my LinkedIn profile is a little bit more generic than my CV. So it's a bit more generic on LinkedIn. And then if I was applying for a job, it would be really specific to the job I'm applying for. If you're just going to be applying for jobs in your specific industry, then it might be your LinkedIn is quite specific, like your CV. But it depends what you're looking for. I'm really focusing on how you can add value. You've got the option to add in your top 5 skills. So you actually select them from the drop-down options, not just type them in. So when we've got the recruiter side of LinkedIn, we use that to search by skills. So making sure you add those top 5 skills in. And then considering your audience, so thinking about those that you're actually connected with on LinkedIn, like what do they want to know about you? Who is your audience on LinkedIn? Who's your connections? Who are you trying to target? And making sure that's information that they would want to know about you. And the next part is looking at the experience section. So underneath the About section, you've got the opportunity to add in about your experience. So when you're talking about your experience, try to go a little bit further than just talking about what you were doing within the work experience within that position, and thinking about what impact did you have, thinking about those achievements that you might have, using action words, keeping it nice and relevant, avoiding jargon if you're working in a company, trying to avoid all the acronyms, etc. they might use within your team or within that company, because outside the organisation, others wouldn't know them. And then thinking about keywords. So recruiters are always searching LinkedIn by different keywords, so including some really good keywords as well within your LinkedIn profile. When we're looking at LinkedIn profiles from the recruitment side, often we're having a look to say, okay, is the information the same as what they've got on their CV? So making sure that that information is up to date, that you have updated it. If you've completed your studies, you've got in there that you've completed it. If you've finished a job and you're on to your next job, that you have that information nice and up to date. You've got the option within your experience section to link each role to the organisation. So instead of typing the organisation that you're working within or previously worked within, making sure you select them from the drop-down options, and that will link you to the organisation, which really just makes sure that you come up in recruiter searches. Prioritising your most relevant experience, checking the information matches, like you did for those top 5 skills within the About section, adding in the skills to each job you're working within. So adding in those top 5 skills again. And then you've got the option to add in employment type. So things like, was a job a full-time job? Was a contract role? So adding that information as well in. And then we've just got a little bit around about engaging with content on LinkedIn. So I do find most people, they are really good at updating their profile and they do that, but then they just leave their profile there and don't really do anything with it. So it is a good idea to try and be proactive on LinkedIn. If it is your thing, some of you might be sitting here and thinking, you know, I just want to have a profile on LinkedIn and I don't really want to spend much more time on it. And that's also okay. Do what works for you. But if you are looking for a new job or looking for career opportunities in the future, it is good to be a bit more active on LinkedIn. So if you see me getting all active on LinkedIn, I might be looking for a new job, but just now I don't really spend too much time, unfortunately. So with LinkedIn content, you can react, you can comment, you can repost. And when you repost something, you can add your thoughts as well. So you can add some details into that. You can add different comments to contribute to discussions. You can share your own knowledge, experiences, and achievements. You can create your own content. And it really just helps with your visibility as well. So from the recruitment side, if we're seeing that you're posting and you're coming up, we might just come across you without even searching for you. So I've got some examples here. They're a little bit difficult to see on here, but I've got one from Mike, who has done a lovely post on LinkedIn. So you can see, hopefully with his post, you can see he's attached some pictures onto his post. So that really just helps with the engagement. People love to look at pictures. So having a look at the pictures, I can see he's added a hashtag in as well. He has tagged others within his post, so that is going to help with that reach. The fact that he's tagged, he's went in and added others, which will help just to get that post out there. And he's talked a little bit about his achievement and his learnings as well, which is great. So thinking about anything that you've maybe been part of, you've achieved something, you've had some learnings from it. If you've completed like an internship, go onto LinkedIn and just talk about it. If you've done some community involvement at the weekend, go onto LinkedIn and just talk about what you've been doing. It really does help set you out from others that might be on LinkedIn and not really telling their story, what they've been up to. And then Cherie kindly let us borrow some posts as well from Cherie. So some good information about a different event, some information about the different thoughts. And then we've got Sonam from our team in talent acquisition that's posted about a job opportunity. So that's really just to give you some ideas. So things, for example, within your network, if you go to a specific professional development night on a specific topic that's relevant, you can go onto LinkedIn, you can post about it, you can share a picture, you can talk about who is speaking, you can maybe add some people that you got to connect with as well. You can share your thoughts and your insights. You know, did you think it went well? What was your key takeaway? So all these things will just help you get noticed on LinkedIn and just going that little bit above and beyond. Using LinkedIn for job opportunities. So I'm sure most of you will know that you can look for jobs on LinkedIn. You just go to that briefcase icon and you can search for jobs. But again, going back to what Mike was talking about earlier about the hidden job market, sometimes you do need to do a bit more than just look at advertised job opportunities. You do need to go that little bit further. So like I mentioned, you can let others know you're open to work. You can set up job alerts. You can actually target different people on LinkedIn as well. So things like if you wanted to connect with a recruiter that recruits for your industry within a specific organization or within a consultancy or recruitment agency, you can go into LinkedIn search function and do some different searches to try and find these people, and then go into LinkedIn, connect with them, send them a message, say you're interested in opportunities they might have available, and that's a really good way just to get them into your network. At the back end of LinkedIn with LinkedIn Recruiter, which us in recruitment have, we can do things like create different candidate pools. So maybe if you've reached out to us to say, I'm interested in opportunities, that align with my skills and experience, I can pop you into one of my talent pools on LinkedIn and maybe reach out to you about future opportunities. It's also a good opportunity as well to leverage it for what we call as informational interviews. So that's essentially when you would meet with somebody that maybe works in a career that you're interested in and you want to find out more about it. So again, you can search for these people on LinkedIn. You can send them a message and say, I want to move into, I don't know, I'll say Mike's job. I want to move into a talent acquisition consultant job. I would love to meet with you to find out more about your background, experience, any advice you can give me, talk about the day in the life of that job. Mike might say no, he might say yes. You might need to send quite a few messages out to get a yes, but most people actually love talking about their industry and about their job. So often they will say yes. So it is worth a go to do that as well. Excellent. We've not got too much longer of me talking, and we'll move on to some Q&A because I know it's been a bit of a long time. The next bit I just wanted to touch on was around about AI. So we do know most people now are using AI to apply for jobs, to prepare for job interviews, which is great. And also organisations are using AI on the other side as well to screen candidates. So within our team, we also actually look at every single application that comes through. So every single CV and cover letter that comes in, we do look at it with human eyes. Other organisations are starting to embed some AI tools. For most organisations I've spoken to, they're not fully embedded at the moment. They might be using AI for parts of the process, but not all of it. So just bearing that in mind, there might be AI reviewing your CV and cover letters, so making sure that you do have all those different keywords within the job advert, that you really do talk to the experience and skills, and your CV and cover letter is tailored. Some AI tools are smart and others aren't that smart, so don't take it for granted that they will know because you studied a certain thing that you will have that relevant experience. Sometimes you do have to spell it out to them as well. So being mindful that AI is out there. Most people are talking about the other end of AI. I was speaking with some recruiters this morning from an agency, and they were saying they are using AI to screen candidates, but only really part of it. They said that they're essentially, when they get the candidates through, their AI tools send in the candidates out like a questionnaire to answer some questions, and then the AI tools checking that to make sure that they meet the minimum requirements of the job. So I think it's just really there to get them through that initial stage. So organisations are doing different things, but just to be aware, it is out there. We're definitely finding within council, we are seeing a lot of applications that are coming through that are very AI written. We can see the cover letters are all just starting to sound the same sometimes. So making sure that you do personalise things, you can use it as a tool to support you, but not to write your whole cover letter, not to write your whole CV. We want to really see the real you in those applications. So really demonstrate yourself, your experience, use your communication style when you're applying for jobs, and you can use it for the interview prep. You can use it for your LinkedIn profile to help you as well. I do just have some AI prompts that I can send out as well. So you can have a look at them. But to be honest, the way AI is going now compared to a year ago It's just much easier. There isn't a need to have as many prompts. Like a year ago, we used to have all these different prompts we're using with applications, etc. But now most AI tools have improved, and you can just have a little bit more of a conversation with it to say, I'm applying for this job. This is my background. Can you help me produce my CV? Can you review for keywords? It might be you create your own CV and cover letter and then just put it into AI to review it for you and give you some feedback. You might ask it for some interview questions that might come up during the interview, and having that final quality check. So my job, I often do what we call a CV review. So people send me across their CV, I review it and give them feedback on. If we were going back 3 years ago, I literally used to be inundated with these CV reviews all the time. But now what I'm finding is they're just doing their own CV reviews on AI. So it's great. They're going into AI and saying, can you review my CV? Can you act as a recruiter or the hiring manager for this role and give me feedback on ways to improve it? So it's been really useful for me, so I can focus my work on other things instead of being stuck doing all these CV reviews, which is great. Cool. Well, that brings us to the end of AI. I will pass over to Priya to talk a little bit about internship opportunities, and then I think we're on schedule to open up with our Q&A session. Thanks, Priya.
Well, I hope everyone's taken some good tips from Mike and Vic about your CVs, your applications, interviewing and making the most of LinkedIn. And hopefully some good opportunities come your way, or you can at least make those opportunities for yourself. Just very lightly, I'll talk to our Auckland Council internships. So we currently have internships over the course of summer. They're fully paid. We offer living wage. And they run from December through to February of next year as a fixed term contract. And they've currently, we've posted all of our ads on our careers page. They're on Seek as well. They're on Possible. So you can have a look at the different types of roles. There's lots of different internships available from, hydrology, environmental monitoring, surveying, analysis, assessment. But I really encourage you to, if you want to know more, really go into the roles and read the advert, and, you'll see more of what to expect if you are actually in the internship doing the work, and you'll get to see the specifics. And of course, if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to pick those up offline, or you can message our team. And yeah, you can apply via our Auckland Council Careers website. This is the quick kind of overview of what the process looks like. You do an online application, and successful people will move on to being sent a one-way video interview, which you will basically record yourself answering some questions. And then you'll go into a formal in-person or potentially online interview with panel. And then we'll do checks and then offer a contract. So that's generally an overview of our internships. And just internships in general, I know that the job market is a little bit tough right now. When you are looking at roles and opportunities, internships aren't the be-all, end-all when it comes to opportunities and next steps in your career. There's also other opportunities as well in terms of, unpaid work, voluntary stuff, getting involved in projects. And if you are students, reaching out to clubs, connecting, coming up with ideas, case management, things like that. And if you are, in organizations or part of associations like this, great opportunities to build connections as kind of a foot in to the door to create those opportunities for yourselves. So yeah, I think that's it. And then just general questions.
Thank you, Priya. So we're going to start now with our question and answer session, which I think hopefully will be valuable to everybody. No question's a silly question. Please just go ahead and ask us. If you're thinking, I'm sure there'll be others that are thinking it. Hopefully we can answer most of them between the three of us. We'll do our best.
I've heard a lot of mixed reviews when it comes to having the professional summary at the very start of the CV. A lot of companies do seem to like them, a lot of them not a lot so. So I'm just wondering if you would have any type of advice of when and when not to add that to a tailored CV.
Yeah, absolutely. um, I think it's worth adding to almost every CV. It tells me a bit about yourself, maybe separates you from your work twin or even someone that has studied the same degree as you. It just gives me 2 or 3 sentences about yourself that really separates you from 400 applicants that have applied for the role. I probably wouldn't use it so much in maybe an academic CV, but no, I think if you're applying for jobs, I think it's something you should consider.
And then just one question when it comes to the margins. I've heard a lot of people complain, especially recruiters, about decreasing the margin sizes. And in the cover letter that you did show, that I saw that the margins were like probably less than a centimeter thick. So I'm just wondering what like the stance on that is.
Yeah, personally, I'm not fussed. As long as your CV is downloadable, easy to read, formatted clearly, I'm not fussed on how big your margins are. Awesome. So we have a question. Do you recommend uploading your CV to your LinkedIn profile? I think your LinkedIn should cover everything that would be in your CV. I probably wouldn't. I would use it as an opportunity to attach examples of your portfolio, research papers, things you've committed to. Vic, do you agree?
Yeah, I would say the same. Just going back to the CV, with each CV you're using, you want to tailor it to the job that you're applying for. So I probably would stay away from uploading your CV. You've got all that information on your LinkedIn profile anyway, and then your CV could be nice and tailored for each job. Well, we'll go to the other question online. I'll just read this one. It's quite a long one. For experienced engineers who are new to New Zealand and don't yet have local project exposure, what would you consider the most important ways for them to demonstrate they are ready for a senior level role and their overseas experience are relevant, especially in areas like client interaction and mentoring junior engineers? Want me to answer that one? Yeah. Don't know if I got the perfect answer to that one. It is really challenging when you come from overseas and you don't have the New Zealand experience. Like, speaking from experience, I came from overseas and trying to find a job when I first arrived was not easy. It is difficult in New Zealand. A lot of it is around about networking, who you know, etc. So it can be really challenging. So I do get it's difficult. Some of the things can do is really thinking about how that experience translates into the New Zealand job market. So thinking about things that you have done within your overseas experience and those projects and how they relate into New Zealand. A lot of it would be getting out and actually networking. So trying to build relationships with those that work within the industry within New Zealand, within Auckland. And the client interaction as well. So I suppose it is different, you know, based on different cultures, different clients, different interactions can be a little bit different. So it could be things like, you know, improving those communication styles. So things like in New Zealand, we have Toastmasters groups that are really good. So a really good way to network and a really good way just to build those communication skills as well. And great when you're going for job interviews because you get put on the spot to answer different questions. So it helps you with your interview skills. Yeah, but it can acknowledge and it can be really challenging when you do come across to New Zealand from overseas, just to start building that network. Great, should we go for a question in the room and then go back to online?
Thank you, Vic. And I really like your sharing about the interview. So one question is about any tips for for handling the situation when I don't know how to answer the panel's questions? Yeah.
Answer that question. So around about handling those interview questions that come up when you take a minute to think. So what you can do, one of the tips is you can just actually take 10, 15 seconds to think. Usually when the interview panel are in the interview, they're catching up on notes as well. They've got paperwork they need to do. They're taking some notes when they're interviewing. So if you just pause for 10, 15 seconds, they probably won't even notice it. You can say to them, oh, can I have a couple of seconds just to think about what example I would like to use? It might be they ask you like a really wordy interview question. You might be left thinking, what are they actually asking me here? So you can say to them, can you repeat that interview question, or can you rephrase it? Or say, I presume that you're asking this question. Am I correct in that? Often what I do as well, I take in notes with me. And if they're asking me a really long question, I just kind of jot down some of the key points. So when I get to the end of the question, I can look at my notes and then respond. Does that help answer
Yeah,
the
sure.
question? Yeah.
And another question is, can you share with us the most impressive interview you met before? I mean, the most the best interview.
So
How they perform, or
yeah. So the best interview. So to be honest, lots of the time that candidates come in for interviews, they struggle. It's not easy process. They are a little bit nervous, and that's okay. Others do really well in an interview. It does just depend. But the main things I check for really is, okay, have they got the skills and experience and competencies to do the job? That's the most thing that I'm interested in. It depends on the job. You know, if it is a job that requires things like influencing and negotiation and sales and business development, then yeah, I do want them to be able to answer quickly on the spot and sell things, etc., and sell themselves. But for other jobs, if they're going for like a data entry role, you know, really, I just want to check and make sure, okay, they can actually do the job. They've got the skills and experience. They've got the motivation. They're capable of doing that job. They don't need to answer the questions really confidently. It might be they need a minute to think before they give their answer, and these things are okay. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Cool. Great, I can see we've got a question online. So one is around about the accredited employer work visa. So how could an overseas professional indicate they might be eligible for an accredited employer work visa to be hired? Would the need of an accredited employer work visa make that candidate less desirable, especially for inexperienced ones? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if you do, or if that's something you come across, but personally I've not.
Yeah, so with the accredited employer work visa, I would sort of use it as an example of using that cover letter to demonstrate all of those unanswered questions. Sort of, why are you applying for this role if you're based overseas? Or sort of what your intentions are, or if you are in the process of obtaining a visa. I wouldn't say it makes a candidate less desirable. We do consider overseas talent, for example. So that's all I can really answer to on that.
Cool. And I can just see there's another two kind of ones that are quite quick to answer online, so I'll quickly answer them. So one around, should I include my personal address on my CV cover letter? Personally, I would say no. I would just pop in, like if you're applying for a job in Auckland, just put in Auckland. If you were applying for a job that was close to home, so for example, I live in Mangere. If I was applying for a job at Mangere Leisure Centre, I would put in there that I lived in Mangere. I lived in that community that I was looking to work within. If it was a casual job, I'm down the road, I can come in quickly. But for most jobs, just putting in the location is fine, not your full address. And then we've got a job about roles available with Auckland Council. So if you just go online to Auckland Council careers, you can see all the available vacancies at Auckland Council. We're putting jobs on every day. So I don't know what's on right now. I looked this morning, but it's probably looking a little bit different tonight. So definitely just go on, have a look. You can register on there as well and set up like a career profile and register for things like job alerts. So I would recommend that you do that. Excellent. Any other questions in the room?
Hi, I have one question.
Is that online?
Hello.
Great, sorry. I'm like, where's that one coming from? Go for it.
Yeah, I'm online. Yeah.
Did you
Can
want
you
to
hear
answer?
me?
Yeah, we can hear you. I just wasn't sure where it was coming from.
Okay.
But go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. So in New Zealand, so if I'm giving an interview, either it's face to face or online, so if I'm not able to answer each and every question, is it considered as a negative point? Like if an interviewer asks me 10 questions, do I need to know all 10, answer to all 10 questions? Or even if I'm giving 8 good answers, and do I have the opportunity to say, okay, I don't know? Because as per my experience, uh, very few people are able to answer each and every questions 100%.
Tell me that.
Yeah, go for it.
It's Mike here. Thank you for the question. So when you are in an interview, you're not going to nail every question that comes your way. Some questions might be a solid like 3 out of 10, and then some might be perfect. It really depends on other things as well as how you interpret it, how you answered other questions, your attitude. All of those other factors determine whether or not you'd be the right fit for the role.
No, so one more doubt. So my point is, am I able to say in New Zealand that, sorry, I don't know the answer? Even if I take few seconds to think, like you said, you can think for a few seconds, but I still am not able to answer. Is it okay to say, or I don't know the answer, or will it give a negative impact?
You can absolutely ask to maybe move on to the next question if it's difficult. I wouldn't say that not being able to answer the question um, would be negative as long as you give it a go or even try to reframe it in a way that you understand too.
Okay, thank you.
Hello. Uh, Good evening. My name is Richard. I just have a quick question for you, Victoria. From the time that you spoke out in front, I understand that you came from previously from Scottish before coming here to New Zealand, and I think a couple of times you mentioned that the industry in Auckland is not mouth to mouth, but I say word like a word industry, one person to another. I just want to understand more about your experience the moment you come to New Zealand. What was the biggest challenge that you faced to land your first role? And after that, obviously, you get that knowledge and understanding of how the industry performs around. But I just want to know what's the first challenge that you had.
Oh, excellent. I hate talking about myself. I'll answer that question. So when I arrived in New Zealand, it was difficult to find. I knew nobody. So I came in and was literally just applying for jobs online. I was really lucky. A recruitment agency had picked up my CV for a job that I'd applied for, and they invited me in for a job interview. I used to work in a recruitment agency in Australia, and I came to New Zealand, and I said, I don't want to do recruitment agency work anymore. I'm done. I'm exhausted. It can be full on. You've got different targets, it's sales driven, you're always on. So I said, don't want to do a recruitment agency. They then actually found me a different contract role doing internal recruitment. So I did the internal recruitment job, got to the end of my contract, and I said, we want you to come and work for us. Please, will you come and work for us? So I think I did a good job in that contract. I was given just a short term. It was like a 3-month contract. So I went on to do that contract. I think I must have done a good job, that the agency got good feedback, and they said, we want you to come in and work for us. I didn't have another job to go to, so I was like, yeah, cool, I'll come in and work for you. And then funnily enough, my job came up at Auckland Council, and the manager that I worked for in that temporary internal recruitment job was now the manager in the Auckland Council recruitment team. And she was actually a client of mine. So I said to her, look, I'm thinking about applying for this job. What do you think? I reached out to her. She's like, you should definitely go and apply for it. Go for it. So I applied for it and got the job. So yeah, it kind of worked that way, like a little bit of good luck. And first somebody picked up my CV, and then from there it really was more, I suppose, just networking and through other people and trying to do a good job in my short-term contract that all came together. Yeah. We do online. Any questions online? Cool. So question, are Auckland Council internships mainly targeted at recent graduates, or can experienced engineers with over 10 years overseas experience who are studying a master's degree in New Zealand also be considered?
You want me to this thing's working. I'll try and raise my voice. Yeah, so with our graduate and our intern roles, they are open to anyone with the qualifications. When you actually look at the advertisements, it will specify if there are any certain requirements that that particular role is looking for. Generally speaking, with our graduate positions, we are looking for those that have kind of recently graduated, although some roles, graduate roles, will be open to just having the qualification. But you must have at least completed the qualification that is required for the role by the time the role starts. For internships, we generally look for people in their second to last year of their tertiary studies, or if you're doing your master's, your PhD, the final year of completing that. But yeah, just I would very much read the advert for more information on the job requirements.
My name is Umair, and I have a 15 years of overseas experience as a geophysicist and engineering geologist. Okay, but I'm quite new to New Zealand market. I'm ready to apply for even less experienced roles here. Okay, so just one question: that is it a good idea to reduce my experience to apply for even the less experienced roles in my resume?
Yeah, so with that one, it is tricky. So what I would do, I wouldn't necessarily remove that experience because I feel like it's so relevant and you don't want to undersell yourself. So I would keep that experience in, but when you write a cover letter, really explaining the reasons you're applying for a job that is a little bit more junior. So explaining within your cover letter that you have just arrived within New Zealand. That's why you're looking at a role that is a little bit more junior. You're really interested in that particular agency or consultancy, etc. So demonstrate your motivation and demonstrate to them that you are quite happy doing that role, even though it's a little bit more junior. You're happy to commit to that for a period of time, because what you don't want them to think is, okay, he's going to get the job and then decide in 3 months later of better offer at a senior level, I'm going to leave. So really just outline within your cover letter the reasons behind it.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
We had some other hands up. I've kind of lost track now.
Hi. So I wanted to ask about, when you're knowing the company when you're going for an interview, what's the best way to find out about them? Because some companies are so low key, they don't actually post projects. So would you go through like LinkedIn and to what level should you know the company?
Yes. Cool. Yeah, so you don't need to go all out there. Private investigator, just like having a look online, seeing if you can find their website if they've got one, doing a Google search. You can ask AI to find some information. Go onto the company's LinkedIn profile. You can go onto the company's LinkedIn profile as well, and you can see who works within that organization. So maybe have a look on their profiles as well to see if they're sharing anything that they're working on at the moment. But yeah, just demonstrating that you've done a little bit of research. You don't need to be an expert in everything. Within council, we have things like our long-term plans and all these different bits and pieces. Myself, I wouldn't have a clue in 100 pages what was in there. I know the basics, but with a candidate coming in, I wouldn't expect them to know everything, but just show they've done a little bit of research is fine. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi. With companies with job portals, like where you have to type in stuff from your resume, do the HRs actually look at the stuff we typed in or the actual resume that we upload? Because in many cases, those job portals, you apply for multiple jobs and things are saved within the website.
You want to answer that one?
Yeah. Yeah, so I've been there. I've crafted my CV for the job I wanted and then highlighted all my experience, and then the job portal's asking for it too. I would fill it out just for safety reasons, making sure your application goes through and you fill out all of the required fields. But as a recruiter, I don't look at it through the job portal itself. I do just look at your CV and cover letter that you've uploaded, some insider secrets. And I think we have one question in the back.
Cool. Yeah, so a good start is definitely the cover letter. So really, again, outlining the reason behind it, but as well, really important to demonstrate within your CV. Sometimes a recruiter might just open a CV and not even look at your cover letter, look any further if they don't feel like you meet the requirements. So within your CV, you can do things like having a transferable skills section. So having a particular section titled transferable skills, looking at the requirements of the job that you're applying for, and then demonstrating, how you've got the relevant experience and those transferable skills. So pulling them out from your previous experiences, and then doing what you can as well when you say, you're looking for a bit of a career change, but thinking about, okay, well, what are you doing to learn more about it? Are you going to things like these types of events? Are you reaching out to others that work within that industry? Are you having a look at different newsletters, etc., just to show that you are interested and you're keeping up to date with what's going on? And if you're doing any further study as well, even if it's things just like short courses, it doesn't have to be a degree or anything, you're doing bite-sized learning or anything, or you're going to some conferences, add that in as well. That'll help. Cool. Did we have another question? Have we got any others? One more online. Cool. Are internships open to students studying a 2-year diploma? Cool. And I think that is the end, unless MD had one more question they wanted to ask before we need to start packing up.
Otherwise, I just wanted everyone to join me in saying a big, massive thank you to Vic and Mike. Really appreciate it. I think everyone got a lot from this. I think it was been really, really valuable. So thank you very much. I think the slides are going to be shared.
Yeah, if I can share them with you or someone else, just send them out. I don't have the list of participants, but I can send them to you.
So Megan, who's online from Engineering New Zealand, she'll send everyone
Great,
who's
I'll send it to
registered a kind of like a follow-up sort of email thing afterwards, which I think will have the slides and everything. And if you have any feedback as well, you can also send it on through there. But yeah, thanks everyone for coming. If there's any more, I don't know if there is actually any more pizza. If there is any more pizza, there's a little bit. So there's a bit more pizza, there's a bit more drinks. Yeah, and take drinks as well, because we aren't allowed to keep it, apparently. Take a soft drink. So if you want something, then grab something. And yeah, we've got a few more minutes until we have to head out. And if you need to leave, then yes, we've got people here to scan you out. But thank you very much.
Thank you. And we'll just close up our closing kara kia. Do you want me to go for it, Priya? Did you want to do it? You want it? Go for it. You're welcome to join in if you would like to, or you can just listen to Priya, who will lead it.
Okay. Tutua mai I ronga, tutawa mai I raro, tutua mai I waho, tutua mai I roto, kia tau ai te mauri tū, te mauri ora ki te katoa, homia huie taikie. Kia ora.
Thank you so much, everybody. Really appreciate it. I know it's quite long to listen to us after someone has been at a work day or been studying, so we really appreciate it.